is up, Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Listen, the economy is not going back to how it was before. Remember how quickly it all went bad? First, it was inflation, then another housing market bubble. Banks started crashing, and now the Fed is laying the groundwork for digital currency. Your money is being attacked from almost every angle. So at this point, you could bury your head in the sand and pretend everything will get better, or take advantage of this opportunity to protect your wealth while you still can. So write this down because you'll not only get the chance to protect your retirement savings now, you could get up to $10,000 in free silver from Badlands partner Goldco. You heard that right. $10,000 in free silver from Goldco. When you visit badlandsgold.com, so don't miss what could be your best opportunity to protect your retirement savings today. Head over to badlandsgold.com now. That's badlandsgold.com.
When I invented MyPillow, my passion was to help each and every one of you. And 20 years later, all of your support is what keeps us going. Because of you, we've been able to create thousands of USA jobs and help millions get the best sleep ever. To thank you, my employees and I are bringing you a limited edition MyPillow. The Giza Elegance MyPillow is made with my patented adjustable fill, the most amazing cotton, and a 2-inch pipe gusset. It has 4... When I invented MyPillow, my passion was to help each and every one of you. And 20 years later, all of your support is what keeps us going. Because of you, we've been able to create thousands of USA jobs and help millions get the best sleep ever. To thank you, my employees and I are bringing you a limited edition MyPillow. The Giza Elegance MyPillow is made with my patented adjustable fill, the most amazing cotton, and a 2-inch pipe gusset. It has 4 custom loft levels, machine washable and dryable, and you get my 60-day money-back guarantee and 10-year warranty.
Go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get your limited edition 20th anniversary MyPillow queen size. Retails for $69.98, now only $19.98. That's right, get a queen size MyPillow for only $19.98.
From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Knowledge Base, episode 14.9. I am Justin, as you might have noticed. Jordan Sather is not in today. I'm filling in for him. Don't worry, we got an action-packed show. He'll be back soon. He's just being a good son and helping his parents out with something that they need some help with. So hello, everybody. Welcome. Definitely going to want to be active in the chat, I would say, today, because we're going to go through a subject that, to me, is some of the most important. And it's one that doesn't really have a good treatment on it. Although there is a lot of good information out there about it, there's not a lot of good information about how the mechanics work, which is critical because if you want to defend yourself against mind control and subversive mind influence, it's a proactive thing. If you do nothing, then you will be influenced. But if you do even anything, then you can often defend quite a bit. So we're going to learn about all that today. And your feedback in the chat will be good because, we're going to try to hopefully get some examples through and discussion across that will give people something to look within themselves and identify potentially some issues they might have had with mind control or whatnot in their lives. So before we get to that, I am going to share. I already shared the Substack post in the chat. Oh, wait a minute. Knowing me, I'm talking to nothing. Okay, here we go. Forgot to hit the stupid button. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm now on screen. Apologies for the technical issues. Everybody had to scramble to put the show together last minute. So we're lucky you managed to get live at all. But here we are. So I have put the links in the description, and I also put them, well, they should be. I don't know. It doesn't look like the description was updated yet. So if you go to the live stream chat, you can find it right in there. And if I can get to it, I'll also post it as a comment. I can't get to it. All right. Well, after the show, I'll go ahead and try to post it as a comment. So we're going to be reading along with the, there they are. Okay. So I did post it as a comment. 1 second, everybody. So I did take a moment to highlight a lot of this stuff. And this will hopefully make going through the material easier. I'm going to attempt to go through it all at once. So in this episode, that might not be realistic, though, because there's a lot of information. I tend to go off on tangents and explain things in a highly detailed way. So we'll just see what we can get through. We might have to have a bleed over show for next week. So here is the post. Let me make this a little bigger. So the post, this is right from our knowledge base Substack. And let me say from the get-go here, I had originally intended on releasing a post about once a month, but unfortunately I've gotten way too many things on my plate and I had to cut something. And unfortunately this was it. However, I'm still developing the content. So when I'm done working on this crunch project I'm working on now, which will probably last the next couple months, I'm going to start writing more of the mind control series. All right, so yeah, thanks there, CSUS and Kronos and Mitchy Me. Hello, everybody in the chat. Let's get right to it here. So, secrets of mind control. The truth about mind control is disturbing, but it also has within it a secret key to unlocking one of our greatest powers, and that's true. One of the interesting things about learning about mind control is it teaches you something about how you should organize the information that governs your life. And if you do that properly, then you become almost immune to mind influence. Not totally, but certainly a lot of the bread and butter stuff that the Cabal likes to push on us, you can deal with almost all of it. So what is that? Well, we're going to get into it here. The world is slowly rediscovering hidden knowledge and forces that use secret information to control humanity. That's a big component. This is hidden knowledge. This is stuff that we used to know. It's stuff that some people know and is kept secret from the masses specifically to weaponize it against them. And our world is swimming in mind control. As a matter of fact, there's so much mind control that it's arguable that if anyone could ever escape the influence of it, because it's that pervasive. And when it comes to mind control, it's not just that we have like Clockwork Orange style centers where your eyes are being forced open and you have to watch a bunch of stuff on the screen. That's one type of mind control. But the grand definition of mind control, the definition I use, defines the mind control in a way that it becomes glaringly obvious that we're actually engaging in mind control and being mind influenced almost all the time. And so again, this is one of these things that there's something that has to be done. And if you do it, you can mitigate quite a bit of it. Now, we talked a lot about this stuff in the first 4 episodes of Knowledge Base. The forces of darkness, at least the more ancient sects of the Cabal, use self-mastery techniques to make sure the people within their ranks bring the best to the table. What does that mean? Well, it means that even though they want the general population to sit around, be distracted with Candy Crush, be overwhelmed by bad relationships, you're constantly dealing with drama and distraction and whatnot, they don't do that at all. They, from day one, you come into this world, if you're born in a Cabal family, based on what we've seen whistleblowers say, you're being trained and prepared and groomed for being active in the Cabal. And they teach, basically, they just maximize all of your abilities. And they have been doing this for a long, long time. So it's arguable that the Cabal have been sitting on some amazing techniques and secrets to cultivate and help us draw out our unique potential. And that's part of what we're going to get into today. We need to respect our enemy. They have pulled off some of the most elaborate, well-planned, and brilliant schemes on Earth. They are ancient psychologists, sociologists, and philosophers, which amassed potent intelligence about human nature and how to use it to their advantage. This is called the left-hand path in Freemasonry or in Kabbalah or in other types of circles. The left-hand path is the path of manipulation, of coercion. It's the path of deception, basically. It's the path of parasitism. So using another person's faculties against their will when their will and your will is not in alignment. So in other words, if I need to get ahead in life by breaking your legs, convincing you to do something you don't want to do but serves me, you're on the left-hand path. So let's get some questions entered in to help percolate some of our thinking about all this. What is mind control in the grandest sense of the term? We're going to walk away with a definition today. How have the forces of darkness used mind control to gain control over the masses? We're going to get a sense of that today. Yeah, taking your early church studies more seriously. Absolutely. Yeah. Why are humans so easily influenced by mind-influencing mechanisms and social forces? We're actually going to get a sense. You're going to walk away today with a good idea of why it is that you're so influenceable and why it is that other people are so influenceable. What is the ultimate antidote to mind control? So information and mind control are intimately linked. Information is one of the most powerful tools for control that human beings have ever discovered. Threats of violence, weapons of war, holding a subject's family hostage, and torture are drops in the bucket. They're really nothing when it comes to the power of information. And if you think about it, which we'll get into here, all the other forms of mind control you might have thought of, the ones I just listed, like coercion, threats of violence, all of that is just itself an action that generates an informational effect in your mind. So it's really, out of all of the mind control, all the mind influencing, all the social influencing, all the propaganda, all of it, always, without fail and without question, is always being aligned to or working with information. Information is the main media. Sorry, guys. I didn't realize that the sound had been out. Apparently, the sound's been off for some time now. So, all right, well, here we go. We're going to start it all over again. So here's the episode. We're going to talk about mind control. Let's make sure that you guys can see what I'm seeing. Okay, great. Well, I don't know where you guys didn't hear me. Apologies for that. I don't know why this happens. My computer's been having this really amazing error where it just turns the microphone off without warning. So I'll try to keep an eye on that. Sorry about that. I'm just going to skip ahead because there's a lot to cover here. But basically what I'm getting at is information is really important. If I say the word like baseball or water, it just muted again. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I am not sure why this is happening. Testing. 1, 2. No, it wasn't that. But go ahead, babe. All right, I'm just going to try to keep this side of the studio up while I'm doing the show here. So hopefully the stupid mic problem doesn't keep happening. All right. We're going to get this. The cabal is not going to stop me from talking to you about mind control. You heard? All right. So here we go. So, thanks. Won't fit anyone. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, baby. So when you hear a word, the word, it's going to get decoded in your mind for a specific idea. And that's why we build languages the way we do, is because ideally your language needs to have one word for one mental object. And when I say mental objects, I just mean that the concept in your mind that you build to represent things in the world. So when I say cat and you think of a cat, well, you're not thinking of an actual cat, you're thinking of the idea of a cat. So words are things we use to link to ideas. Then those ideas themselves represent some aspect of reality. So, and because of that, it just goes to show you how powerful information is, because information is something that informs us. When you hear a word, your mind decodes it, and our mind is so hyper fertile, so receptive to information that as soon as a little bit penetrates through your mind, you can't help it. You're going to think of something related to baseballs if I say the word baseball. So what does that mean? It means that we are informed by information. Now, there's another aspect to this that's really important too, and it's where your reality comes from. Maybe you're sitting in the kitchen right now, or you're listening to me in the car, or someplace. You're someplace, and you might think to yourself, well, you're really there. You're in that place. And you are to a certain extent. You're physically located there. But what you're experiencing while you're in that location is not direct contact with reality. You're actually experiencing a simulation that your body generates based off of the sense data and all the fantastically amazing aspects of your brain that were carefully designed, arguably by probably angelic beings or something like that, to absorb aspects of reality and recreate it in our minds. So what you're experiencing right now, you're not in contact with reality. You are in contact with a simulation created by the information flowing through your body and your mind. That is one of the most important parts to understand about mind control, because what it means is that your reality it means that your reality is created by information. I'm sorry, guy. I don't know what is going on here, why this thing keeps crashing on me. But hopefully any of this is coming through. Well, the problem is if I pull the cord out, it won't recognize the mic afterwards because I'm on the stream. So anyway, all right. I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to keep an eye out on the mic indicator, and hopefully you guys are actually getting any of this. All right. I could just sit on sound test, and it looks like I am being heard, so that's good. All right. Let me just make sure. Yes. Okay. So this is why you need discernment, because your mind is so, like I said, receptive, so fertile, so responsive to information that you can't really stop the generator of reality going once it's gotten going. What do I mean by that? Well, if somebody jumped into a room and scared the hell out of you, you wouldn't be able to stop the flow of information that's pouring into your being so that you didn't have to get scared. So at a certain level, it's totally beyond our control. We cannot interrupt the information flow so that anything that we don't want to experience doesn't have to come into our field. So that means that we have to develop a better process. We have to develop something called discernment and a whole process around discernment so that when now it keeps crashing. I know, but I'm looking at the indicator and it keeps switching off. So, but I'm glad, it's good to know that the audio is actually coming through. Although it looks like it's frozen now still too. Yeah. I don't even know if I can do this. I'm sure, guys, let me know in the chat if the show is even like intelligible, because from my end it keeps crashing. And yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, guys. Sound died again. Okay, I'm okay now. All right. Well, sorry about this, guys. I'm going to just, hopefully this is coming through and I'm just going to keep going. Okay, so we need discernment. We need discernment because information is constantly flowing inside of a, is it? Well, let me know in the chat if it's like totally if you can't hear me at all, or if it keeps breaking in and out so bad that, there's no point in even trying to get this going. Just, if you could, just let me know in the chat. I'm going to keep talking for now, but we might have to kill the show for whatever reason. I'm not quite sure why this is happening, but in any case, I'm going to keep going here. So you need discernment because you're navigating your life with information. Information is the thing that you're using to navigate your life. You're making decisions on what you're going to do that day based on the information that flows into your head. And that information creates something called maps of meaning, or maps. So you're going to have a sense of what your day looks like because you've checked your schedule, or you got a call from your boss. So you've been informed about your day in some way. And then that information, like a download, like a map, is what you're going to be building your day on. So if that information isn't good, if it's not correct, if it's not aligned properly, then you're going to direct your ship in a really nasty place. So this is why I like to use the analogy of a ship. Oh. There it goes. All right. This is why I like to use the analogy of a ship, because a captain of the ship has to be present. If anybody's ever thought about what it takes to sail, you've got to have all these different moving parts. You've got to have the crew that is managing all these different things, taking up the sail, bringing it down, moving the rudder, making all these course corrections. And there's a person at the center of that, the captain, who's actually calling the shots, who's got this incredible knowledge in their head about how to manage all these things, and is issuing orders to make sure that the whole ship doesn't get totally spun off course. Well, your life is the same way. If you're on autopilot too much, then you won't be able to navigate your life. It's like you're asleep at the wheel, like literally. So discernment is the part of us that allows us to be more present in our own life, to assess the information we're absorbing, and most importantly, to assess assumptions. Because the way the mind works is you're generating assumptions about reality constantly. And unless you go in there and be like, well, wait a minute, hold on, let me take a look at that assumption to see if what's going on with it, whatever assumption was there to begin with, that's the one that's going to be running the show. Okay. All right. So I wrote this little analogy about discernment. Hopefully this is useful to you. Discernment, the captain of the ship of being. The mind is a ship on the seas of experience. If the captain is asleep, the ship is driven by the winds and waves. The ship is a slave to the weather around it. I use that analogy for a good reason. It's going to come in handy when we talk about direct mind control. But at any moment, the captain can rise from his slumber, take command, and direct the sails and rudder to control the ship, even as it is assailed by forces outside the ship. Discernment not only defends the mind, but transforms influences meant to control into empowerment. So that's the key. That's the interesting thing about the way mind control works, is if you're going to mind control somebody, you got to give them information that's going to guide them. And that means if they wake up in the middle of being mind controlled, then they can see what's happening. And now all that stuff that you were going to use to subtly control them when they were more unconscious, now they can, a person who's awoken to that, who's actively using discernment, now they can take those tools and defend against the mind control. And that's what, I mean, frankly, this is what the awakening is all about. Like we were asleep. We were just unconsciously moving forward into the future without any concept of where we were going and being mind controlled like crazy. Then we wake up and we're like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to castrate my kids. I don't want to pump my kids full of toxic vaccines. I don't want my election process to be stolen from me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because we are moving down this path, whether we like it or not. But when we wake up, we can realize, wait a minute, I don't want to be here. And now all these things that we're being unconsciously guided through, we can identify, use to our advantage, and talk about so we can alert other people and help other people wake up. So it's about activating that inner discernment process. Let me just check to chat, make sure. Okay, it seems like we're doing good. So here we see one clue as to what tool is within our grasp to liberate the mind. It's the will. The will is critical. And frankly, I'm going to eventually do a series on this because there's some fundamental aspects of our being that we kind of just take for granted because we all have them and we all use them. But there's a lot going on there. And frankly, I'm not so sure that people are exercising their will in the way that they think, because one of the interesting things about your emotions and the way mind control works is your emotions act like an autopilot. You know, I mentioned this before on the show, if you really love a certain type of food, the first time you eat it, then the next time you're hungry and you're craving something similar to that impulse to eat that favorite food just going to, like slipping into a warm bath, it's going to bubble up in your mind, and you're just going to kind of like be guiding on autopilot towards the refrigerator, towards the packaging, opening it up. You're going to do all this stuff, and it's all going to be very unconscious and very automatic in the way it works. And if you've ever looked into the way that some criminal behavior, certainly the more addiction like manic prone criminal behavior, it's almost all emotionally driven. And then if you add another piece of the puzzle, if you look at schizophrenics and psychopaths, particularly people who go through psychotic breaks, psychotic break it's like the captain gets disabled from the ship. And now these primitive influences are being coupled with a kind of strange alternative voice or version of you that historically we would call that demons. And now the demon is running the show, and it's working with your body. It's like it's hijacked your body to guide you through positive emotional affect into these courses. If you've ever studied Jeffrey Dahmer, because he's a really good case because he got a lot of interviews and you can kind of get an insight into what was going on with him. He was being led by unconscious, almost mind control-like processes as a result of the issues he had suffered. He would drink heavily. That drinking would disinhibit him. That part of his brain that is the autopilot would kick into gear, and it would lead him down all these places. And he said he felt like he wasn't even like in control of the show sometimes, like he was just along for the ride. That is how easily your autopilot system or the emotional system can hijack your course, can take control of the helm, and now it's guiding you in your life, and you're not even really in control. You're still along for the show. So that's all through the emotional process. All right, so before we continue, we're going to hear from one of our wonderful and amazing sponsors. Our podcast today is sponsored by The Wellness Company. You guys know we're always looking for the best health and wellness products to give us an edge. There it is. But if we eliminate businesses that have gone woke, don't know how many genders there are, or force mandated vaccines on their employees, there are fewer and fewer companies to support. That's where The Wellness Company comes in. The Wellness Company was formed by a team of doctors who lost their jobs for speaking out about the vaccines and pushing back against lockdowns. The Wellness Company offers live telemedicine and a whole range of custom and formulated supplements to keep you at your best. Our favorite Wellness Company product is their Spike Support Formula. It's the only product that contains ingredients researched to block and dissolve COVID spike protein. We travel a lot, and spike shedding is a real concern. Taking daily spike support has brought me and can bring you better mental clarity and increased energy levels. Hundreds of other people, vaccinated or not, have reported similar results. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/TWC and use code BADLANDS to save 10% at checkout. That's badlandsmedia.tv/TWC, code BADLANDS. Badlanders have set No Bugs beef on fire. Have you ordered yet? Let's face facts. America's supply chain is going to be increasingly disrupted in the coming months. And it is essential that you stock up and get some amazing protein. Having enough protein to feed your family for several months is essential. They provide sous vide, freeze-dried, all-American beef from ranches in Texas that have never, ever given their cows an mRNA jab. The beef is stored in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers for maximum shelf life, and it will stay shelf stable for more than 10 years without refrigeration and with maximum nutrition and flavor. All you need to do is soak it for 15 minutes and it's ready to eat. These are not your typical survivor meats. They are premium cuts of ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, sirloin, and chuck. Get your family ready for the chaos at badlandsmedia.tv/no-bugs and use promo code BADLANDS for an additional 10% off your order. That's badlandsmedia.tv/no-bugs, promo code BADLANDS. All right. Let's get right back to it here. Since information flows into the mind every second of every day, the only way not to be profoundly influenced by information, the information-rich reality, whether it's normal life or propaganda, is to detach entirely from reality, like slipping into a coma or dying. So that means there's only really one way to avoid being mind controlled. It's called being dead or being in a coma. There's no way to avoid mind influence other than that. Now, what you're really doing is you're learning to defend your mind. So if you think about, I'll use the Jedi analogy because, Star Wars is cool and all that. You could sit there and if you're being shot at by blasters by a bunch of stormtroopers, you could just sit there like Boba Fett and just have the stuff ricochet off you. But that's probably not going to work out too well. But really what you need to do is you need to anticipate each shot, carefully look at it, and then use your lightsaber to block each one. And that, obviously it's a movie, it's a show, so we don't know what's really going on, if there's anything really happening. But let's assume that it's real for a moment. It's like a Bruce Lee type of situation. The people or the Jedi, they're using their incredible mind abilities to perfectly and crystal clear observe something that's coming towards them and develop a perfect Aikido style of defense. So that's what Aikido is. Aikido is you take the force of an incoming attack and you use your body and your momentum to turn so that either the attack is neutralized or it's turned back on the person. Well, when it comes to discernment, the gold standard is you're taking the information that is designed or intended to manipulate you, to coerce you, to distort your beliefs and values. You're seeing it for what it is, and you're retuning it, or you're alchemizing it, or you're digesting it in a way that it neutralizes the mind control, and then you absorb the truth of it. So now it's like an inoculation. It's like now you're immune to that particular aspect of mind control. If somebody tried to dupe you by selling you antivirus software that you never paid for, when you go through that experience, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be way more able to identify when somebody's trying to dupe you with antivirus software than you were before. And in order to do that, you need your will and you need your mind. You can't do that. You can't guard yourself against mind control without it. There is no other way. That's what I'm saying. It's either you're dead or you're actively using your mind to guard and defend and absorb the mind control. Now, the good thing is that when you learn this discernment process, that every attempt that they try to use to mind control you or throw something at you or distract you or whatnot, it actually makes you stronger. It makes you more resilient, more intelligent, more wise, more empowered. That's the cool part about this. This is the way this works. This is why I think this is some of the most fascinating information. All right, so maps of knowledge. Let me make sure we're still good here. Okay. All right. Yeah, emotions, R.T. Jones says, it's hard to discern emotions when they get in the way. Emotion sometimes knocks discernment to the curb. Absolutely. It's because at one level, I mean, your emotions are complex. There's a lot going on with emotions. But one of the things that emotions do is they're the autopilot. You know, if let's say you're married, let's say you've just discovered, you walk into your husband's office, you open his drawer, and it looks like there is a napkin with a lipstick on it from a woman, clearly not a man, and there's a little note written on there. You know, when you see that, your emotions are going to flare up. Your emotions are going to be so hurt that this could happen. No, this couldn't be your husband. They're going to have all these reactions, right? Because in that moment, what your emotions are doing is they're acting like the compass. And when your emotions flare up to say, no, there's no way in hell my husband could do this, what that's telling you is that you value the relationship with your husband so much so that you might even entertain the possibility that you'll deny reality to protect it. Okay, so it tells you about where you're at. It tells you about what you might be tempted with. It tells you about how much you value your husband's relationship. It tells you a lot. What it might not tell you is the truth of the situation. That's why you got to use this. You know, that's why I love the captain analogy. Because I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I watched a lot of Star Trek. Not like convention fan, but, you know, I watched a lot of Star Trek as a kid. And, you know, what happens is there's tons of stuff happening. The captain's sitting at the center of the ship or whatever. He's on the bridge. And he's got people suggesting, like, oh, my God, you know, Worf's like, hey, we got to blast those people out of the sky. Deanna Troy's like, hold on, we got to use diplomacy. Will's like, hey, we got to, like, take some defensive action, something like that. And the captain has to observe all these suggestions in this kind of like calm, stoic place, and then use his mind, his will, to identify the truth and the most valuable option. Often emotionality doesn't necessarily help you in that situation. As a matter of fact, it tends to, if you let emotions be the deciding factor, you're probably not going to make good decisions. Sometimes with gut things you can make good decisions, so I'm not going to throw them out forever. But I'm just saying that, like, you could do the buckshot approach and just be like, well, I'm just going to do whatever the emotions tell me. And you know what? You're going to probably get some good results sometimes. Or you can use your mind. You can avoid all those horrible results to act on an impulse in most cases. And you can really know that the course you're setting for yourself is going to be good. Yes, take every thought captive. I love that. The Bible actually has a lot of Psalms that provide some really amazing information to deal with some of the stuff we're talking about right now. All right, anyway, let me at least get through this section and we'll probably pick it up next week. So knowledge is a set of ideas that model or represent the world and therefore help you make sense of your life experience as well as guide your behavior. The knowledge you have about elevators, a set of ideas in the mind, helps you have faith in the fact you won't plummet to your death when going down the first time. So, you know, when you walk into the elevator, you can't see what's happening. You're going to start to feel the motion of falling because you're going to be going down if you're going down. So one part of you is going to be like freaked out, like, whoa, wait a minute. Why am I moving? I'm losing that sense of direction. What's going on here? Another part of you, the part of you that has the knowledge in your mind, is going to say, well, hold on there, emotions. Chill out. Let me use my power of will and consciousness and knowledge to calm you down because we're not really falling. We're just on an elevator. So that's what I just described. That's what we might call self-directed mind control. Because mind control, you might hear the term, you're like, oh my God, it's all bad. That's not the case. Mind control is literally that. It's mind control. You want to be in control of your own mind. The problem is when somebody else tries to control your mind. But you being in control of your mind, that's exactly where you want to be. Okay, so what is knowledge in this? Knowledge in this sense is an internally generated map of the world that not only contains the things we see, smell, hear, and touch with our senses, but also their meaning and values in relation to us personally and our social groups, even what we think of as God. So knowledge is your ability to hold ideas in your head and use that as a map is critical, like I mentioned before. If you put your phone down on the kitchen table and you leave and you're like, whoa, shoot, where's my phone? And you go into your head and you're like, where did I leave my phone last? Your mind might supply you an image of your phone on the kitchen table. And the fact that you can see that image in your mind and be like, oh, that's where my phone is. That's the power of knowledge. That's the guiding, compassing, the directioning power of knowledge and will. So a hungry patron, or for instance, your knowledge of a restaurant contains physical objects you typically find there, such as tables, menus, waitstaff, cups, plates, utensils, food, drinks, and so on. The entire scene of a restaurant is given more meaning through our relationship with each of the objects, such as our childhood experiences that taught us what these things mean and are. So again, when you walk into a restaurant, because you've seen a lot of the things in the restaurant before, the reality, what's called in psychology, the phenomenological experience. So what are you actually experiencing when you walk into that restaurant? Not me, not your husband, not the dog, but you. What do you experience? That's the phenomenology. And all of that is informed by your past experience and many other things, but mainly that. So a hungry patron of a restaurant walks in and looks at a menu. The pictures and descriptions of the food to her represent a tool, a pathway to alleviate her hunger, as well as a way to experience the joy of eating. What am I getting down to here? Well, what I'm talking about is how our mind is constantly putting objects in our experience into certain boxes or categories for depending on what we're trying to do. Like I said, if you're hungry, then the meaning of a hot steaming plate of food is going to mean something different than if you had just finished eating a meal. So our mind is the thing that's adding those meanings and values. Its meaning, what is this object? What are its properties? And then the value. What use is it to me in my personal agenda at the current moment? But to someone who just finished their meal, a menu has a different meaning. So a social example, plate full of steaming steak tips might seem really delicious to a meat eater, but to a vegan, it might not seem that great. I just explained why. So knowledge can be transmitted from one person to another, and in doing so, that knowledge influences a person's thoughts, attitudes, emotions, and values. So just like I described how your personal experience of entering the restaurant is based on your personal knowledge, well, when we interact with other people, we absorb a little bit of their knowledge by communicating with them. And that means their ideas can influence our reality. That's mind control. That's as simply as the most general definition I can describe. When another person's ideas are affecting your sense of reality, then that's a form of mind control. Now, what that also means is that, again, if you learn how to discern and assess the matrix code of which are basically the ideas that are flowing in your mind at any given moment, then you can begin to identify. It's like, oh, well, the reason why I always get anxious when I walk into my office is because the first day I was there, I accidentally spilled a bunch of coffee on me, and now I have this anxiety, this kind of PTSD response from walking in because of classical conditioning. Knowledge can act as a tool of control because another person's view of the world can be downloaded into another person's mind, acting as a map that the other person uses to guide their life. Again, that is it right there. So keep that in mind. That's a great point. I'm just going to read this out loud because that's a really good comment. I had an issue years ago where I was having my marriage fall apart. I found myself obsessed with bad thoughts. I finally got myself trained enough to catch it starting and then stop it. It got easier. Yep, that's the trick. That's a trick because, again, your brain, your mind, whatever we want to refer to it as, it's generating thoughts all the time. I like to think of it as like a stream. If you were to stand in a stream, like so that you were fixed, but the stream was moving, then there's no moment when the water isn't flowing around you. And we tend to associate thoughts with water, and that's another reason why that analogy works. So you can't really stop the thoughts from flowing, but what you can do is you can guide where the flow happens based on your will and your attention. All right. Yeah, you have to, I call that activating the choice point, because you don't realize it, but just by looking at a certain in your mind space, because your mind is a sea of ideas. And when you gain a perspective, what you're doing is it's like you're seeing through the ideas. And what you see through the ideas, that's what you feel emotionally. That's what you respond to and react to at a conceptual level. So if you walk outside your door and you look out into the sky and it seems like it's going to rain and it might be really bad, and you think to yourself, I'm going to think about the worst case scenario, which is a tornado is going to touch down in 10 seconds and kill me and my family. Well, you're seeing this scenario through that lens, and it's going to generate a bunch of crazy stuff. So what that means is when you use your will to be like, well, wait a minute, body, that thought that just I became possessed of, that's not what's really happening here. I just activated the choice point. And now I can create a new thought that says, well, that's not the only possibility. Maybe it's just cloudy today. Let me check the weather. You know, you can engage in a process, a kind of mental alchemy to augment your perspective. And that's really it. Perspective control, or what has been referred to as frame control, the frame, which are the ideas that you're using to see or guide your perspective. That is huge. It's everything. If you can manage to manipulate that and get control over that, which is what I think you did, T-Skip 17, you know, especially in our relationships, because on our relationships, every time somebody does something that either throws an obstacle in your life or causes an issue, that's a minor tragedy that needs to be dealt with, especially at the social level. And if you don't engage with that, if minor tragedies are happening constantly and you don't process them by talking to the people that relate to them about them, then your brain gets filled with toxic ideas. And it's because at a certain level, it's like, you know, you're trying to hold beach balls under the water. You can't. So anyway. So yeah, let me keep going here. So all mind control, whether MK Ultra style mind-based techniques, subliminal advertising, or mainstream media propaganda, are founded on the same principle. You get the subject to use their controller's maps instead of their own, just like I said. So the mind controller, when you're getting mind controlled, it's the controller's ideas that they want in your head. And there's a very sophisticated and effective process for getting you to do that. If you want to know, look at advertising. Advertising is like the coup de grace of subtle mind control systems or any form of popular media. So ask yourself, this is a critical question. What do you believe and value? Now ask yourself this, where did that come from? I guarantee you that if you were just sit down as an exercise and be like, all right, I'm going to think of every belief and every value that I'm using to guide my life. I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm fat, I'm ugly, the world is broken, the world is, you know, God is amazing. You know, I guarantee you there's a million of them out there. But just try to map out at least a handful, right? At least some of the ones that relate to how you manage your relationship with your significant other, or you manage relationship with your job, something like that. And what you will recognize, especially from a job level, is that there are tons of toxic ideas that you're using to guide your life because of the social systems you're in. I call it mediocrity culture or toxic work culture. I'm sure everybody's been at a job like that, where it's not the best job. You're not necessarily all that thrilled about doing whatever, dish cleaning, but you know, you're a good spirited person. You want to bring your A game, and you certainly want to bring a good attitude, because the only thing a bad attitude is going to do at a job is make you miserable and then make everybody else miserable. So you try to stay upbeat, try to stay cheerful, where you keep a positive attitude, a positive perspective on the situation. Well, when you do that, then when stuff happens in your job, you're not filled with toxic emotional energy because you're judging things in a toxic emotional way. You're going to have, you know, if you trip and you accidentally break a plate, it's like, you know what? Well, it's okay. This is just an opportunity to learn more and be better about my proprioception. But if you're like, I hate this job, I hate everybody in it, any little thing that happens to me is itself an exercise of validating my perspective on how much I hate this job, then you know what you're going to get? You're going to get a bunch of events that happen that cause you to justify hating the job. You know, and especially if that comes from the social culture. I mean, I can tell you there's been at least a dozen jobs I worked. There's been at least a dozen jobs I worked that I went in with a good attitude, and my good attitude was a threat to the person who decided to have a shitty attitude. And then now I had to make a decision. I had to like pop the little social bubble and be like, well, no, the job isn't as bad as you think, bucko. And I'm not going to be dragged down to hell with you. if you do that, you're going to have to go against that social influence. And what I'm getting at here is it's very easy through social contagion, through social influencing power, to go into a social situation and absorb the belief and value trends of that situation. And a good chunk of the beliefs and values people have in their being, the things that are running the show, did not come from them. They just absorbed from their environment, and they're running their life. And that's another form of mind control. So sitting down and asking yourself what those are can be extremely helpful. So a lot of times people think they're making their own decisions when in fact they're being guided by maps of knowledge dropped into their minds by hidden forces while they scrolled through social media, watched TV, listened to music, or read a book. Yeah, that we're living in the grand Olympics of subtle influence. I mean, in the past, the cabal had to work pretty hard to get a subtle influencing message to you. Granted, they came up with really effective solutions for that, so don't worry, they got the job done. But in today's world, I mean, the amount of influence that we're being bathed in constantly is truly remarkable. And again, this goes to show you that you got to really ask yourself, do the things you believe and value, is that really you? Or are you just a product of your culture? Most people are terrified at the answer to that question. All right, let's see here. We got like about 10 minutes. Oh, Artsy Joan has a great question. She says, are there certain exercises for your brain to help you control your will or discernment? Yes, there are. There's a bunch, actually. Here, I'll tell you what. I'm going to just finish this section, and then I'm going to spend the rest of the time answering that question. Knowledge can be stripped of its meaning, of its value meaning, so it can be shared as a neutral map with others. That's important because, if I share information with you and it's all loaded with my own biases, then what I'm doing in a way, like let me see if I can give you an example. Let's say I'm sitting in the cafeteria for the job, and you come in and you ask me, well, how's lunch? Or what are they having for lunch? Even better question. What are they having for lunch? And my answer is steak and cheese. Well, I answered the question, right? But it's all front loaded with clearly my bias that I do not like steak and cheese. And the social implication of that is if you do like steak and cheese, and now you're going to earn the same scorn for the food that or for you that I just offered for the food. So there's a good example of that. But it can be stripped of its value containing components, its biases, and that's what we call unbiased information. Conversely, knowledge can contain value meanings that suggest and influence a person, how they interpret information, usually called bias information. Both types of knowledge can be used for influencing other people in a mind control way, but biased knowledge sets are usually more potent mind control devices. That's why you see almost all media is filled with biases. That's I'm sure the older folks in the audience will remember the times in the 80s and 90s where there was less bias in the media. Now it's just we're swimming in it all the time. All right. So I'm going to switch over to this question, which is a great question. There it is. Oops, well, I'm going to do that. I love this highlight tool, but it constantly pops up in annoying ways. I don't want you to be there. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, here we go. Are there certain exercises for your brain to help you control your discernment? Yes. Yeah, as my beautiful wife says, hypnosis is great for resetting your subconscious patterns. That's right. There we go. So there's a couple things. First of all, the way your mind works is it has these rhythms. It's something called the ultradian rhythm. It's a 90-minute rhythm. That ultradian rhythm, it's like a focus session, because what happens is what your mind is doing is every time you engage with something, like if I look at something or I think about something or I'm focusing my attention on something, that thing I'm focusing my attention on, a really sophisticated process is happening. While I'm focusing my attention on it, I'm becoming more aware of the thing itself while I'm becoming less aware of the things around me. Simultaneously, I'm also becoming aware of the stuff in here, my mind, what the thoughts that are bubbling into my head, as well as the feelings or the value impressions I'm getting as I look at this thing. And all of that is, to use an analogy, it's like you're going into a room. So when you want to focus on one thing, it's like you're entering that room and you can't go into other parts of the house or the building that you're in. And then when you want to look at something else, you got to get out of that room and you got to go walk into another room. And now I use that analogy because the mind, when it's engaged with something, then it primes all of its tools and abilities, the things that's interpreting what you're seeing, that's generating thoughts, that's producing emotions, that's giving you insights. There's all this stuff happening as you focus on that thing. And then when you disengage with it, all that stuff's still going on. So if anybody's ever had what I'm about to describe happens to them, this is what's going on. If you've played a video game obsessively and when you close your eyes at night, you still see the game in your mind. Well, what's going on there is the part of your brain that got spun up with momentum that you were using to engage with the game. When you close your eyes, it's still moving and it takes time to settle back down. If you've ever had a situation where your husband or wife or kids said something to you and it triggered you, and now the whole day, it's like a part of your brain is captured with processing that information. That's the engagement process is happening. So what that means is that your mind is like a computer, and if you give it too many things to think about, then it can't think about any one of those things all that well. So if you want to improve your discernment, which is itself the process of using your mind to, one, gain a clear conceptualization of something, and two, compare that clear conceptualization of something to another thing to see if it's true or see what's valuable going on, then you need a clean slate. You need to have the parts of your mind not juggling 50 things. You got to have them hopefully just, at peace, ready to absorb and focus on whatever it needs to focus on. So that means hypnosis, as my wife is saying, it's a really good way to do that. Hypnosis is useful in a bunch of different ways, but I'm going to give you like some general tools. Generally, one of the best things you can do is embrace the ultradian rhythm, all with a U. Ultradian rhythm. It's a 90-minute cycle, as I mentioned. It takes when you're going, I'll use this analogy. If you're going to go read a book, you're like, all right, I'm going to go read for 90 minutes. Well, the first 10 to 20 minutes or so, those parts of your brain that are going to be engaged with the book, they're spinning up, they're getting activated, and they're not working perfectly right away. You don't just open a book and boom, you're in the book world. Not usually. I mean, unless you're a good reader and those muscles are really strong. Most of the time, it takes you a few minutes to get like in the zone. Once you're in the zone, you will often stay there for about an hour or so. It depends. Everybody's different. It depends on what's happening in your life. It depends how stressed you are. It depends what time of day it is. But you're going to get some amount of productive time where you're really focused, your mind's active, you're generating a lot of insights, you feel pretty good, you're engaged, all that kind of stuff. And then at around the 75 to 80 minute mark, you're going to start to have a little hard time focusing. Your mind's going to be a little distractible. And that's because the rhythm is ending. And what you should do is you should fractionate. And what fractionation is you stop doing the thing you're just doing and you try to do something like in the polar opposite direction. So if you're reading a book with lots of little words, really using your imagination heavily, put the book down and go walk outside and pick up objects you see and really try to engage the object with your mind. Like look at the flower. Don't just look at the flower and like, all right, now I'm daydreaming about something else. Like really like look at the flower, like try to notice details you haven't seen before. Try to, pick up pieces and details you haven't seen before. When you fractionate along the ultradian rhythm, that means that every 90 minutes or so, you're incorporating some little break of some kind to break up the mind cycle. And what that's going to do is it's just like your mind's just like a muscle. If I asked you to hold 50 pounds for 10 hours, after some portion of time, like probably 10 minutes or so, your hands are going to shake and you're going to eventually drop it because you're not going to be able to hold it anymore. And your ability to be present at those tail ends of the exercise are going to be really hard because you're going to be struggling just to hold your position. Well, the mind's the same way. If I asked you to stare and focus at the same thing for 10 hours, after about an hour and a half, you're going to have a real hard time. And then the longer you stay in that, the more emotional energy you're going to chew up to keep yourself focused. And that's what we call stress. And stress is a sympathetic nervous system response. It interestingly enough, it tends to make you hyper-focused depending on what's happening, but it comes at a cost. And the longer you stay in that stress state, the more the cost is going to be at the tail end. So I would say, taking all that into consideration, honoring your ultradian rhythm is really amazing. Meditating is really amazing. Stimulating your mind is really amazing. So if you're somebody that only likes to do a certain set of things, you don't like to deviate from that, try to deviate a little bit, because that's going to help strengthen those other muscles. And that means you're going to be more productive in that moment. Another good thing is you need a confidant. We are not meant to live life alone. If you have no confidant, if you have no one that you can unburden yourself to, who is genuinely interested in your life, so it's not somebody that, you know, doesn't give a damn about you. Hopefully it's somebody that actually cares about your life. Hopefully it's a friend. So if you have a confidant, then any thought that pops up in your mind, not like literally any, because there's limits to time and space, but you should be engaged in a regular practice of sharing honestly, fully, and transparently the contents of your beingness and some portion of the day, or not portion of the day, but some amount in your life. Obviously, in the modern age, we have a lot of limitations, so maybe you can only do this once a week. And maybe it's only for 30 minutes. But if you do that one thing once a week, it will unburden you, because we have what we might think of as a social bladder, or a social like satchel that we can put stuff in. And as things happen throughout the day, anytime something happens to you, whether it's just for your own personal life, it happens between you and the birds, it happens between you and your job, there's like something gets thrown in that social box, that social bag. And if it gets too full, then that social bag, it's like a full bladder. You know, it's like, imagine if you tried to work your job with your ragingly full bladder. Your attention's going to be pretty starved. You're not going to be able to focus that well, and you won't be able to use your mind that well. So whether it's hunger tensions that need to be released, or social tensions that need to be released, or sexual tensions that need to be released, or, you know, any type of tension, anything that's you're holding on to that requires release, in the act of releasing it, it'll discharge the energy, it'll open your mind up, and it'll make your mind more available to be used, and, you know, for discernment and things like this. So, all right. Hopefully that was a cool answer. Yeah, I would say reading is really important. You know, unfortunately, a lot of the things that we have learned to do in our modern life are not helping us. Spending like hours upon hours staring at this thing, not so great. Sitting around in a sedentary way, not good. Being isolated and not talking to anyone ever because you have no one to talk to, or you're too much of a coward, or whatever it is, not good. Sleep or staying up too late, not good. Eating crappy food, not good. So, I mean, if you think about it, like, one of the things that keeps the cabal in power is that we're too distracted, sick, emotionally plagued, all these kind of things, to just see the scams happening all around us and take action to defend ourselves. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if the cabal want to keep this gravy train rolling, we're basically, if you can imagine an analogy, imagine that all of humanity is a 300-pound man with a game system in his hands. And it's so close to his eyes that he can't see nothing else besides the game system. And he's just slogging forward every day, just doing the game like nothing, you know, he doesn't even aware of what's happening around him. And then on his back is this 150-pound waif of a person who's controlling what the video game is doing and showing this massive lumbering brute of a person. I mean, that's kind of like what humanity is right now. The reason we're just, you know, slow walking into oblivion is because, frankly, most of us are not paying attention. We're not in the game. We're being so distracted that our body has effectively been hijacked, and somebody else's mind is using our will, our thoughts, our emotions, our physicality, everything to affect their agenda. That's the world we're living in. So the more we can, you know, activate these aspects of ourselves and work together with other people, the more we can defend this stuff. All right. So I'm going to start to wrap up. If there's any last minute questions or anything like that, go ahead and pop them in the chat. Let me know, by the way, if the show came out good despite all the technical issues we had. Okay, so next week, most likely what we're going to do is we're going to continue this discussion. And then after we get through this aspect of this discussion, it may go 3 episodes. I don't know. It depends on how quickly I get through the material. But Jordan should be back, so it'll probably take a little longer than normal. That's okay. We'll have lots of awesome insights when that happens. And yeah, so with that, thanks so much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like this video if you haven't already done so. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up. Really appreciate it. That's essential. John told me, he's like, you know, Justin, if you don't get your likes up, I'm gonna have to kick you to the curb, buddy. Well, here I am. I'm telling you, we got to get these likes up. But in all seriousness, oh great, I'm glad it came through. It looks like people are responding in the chat that they heard and like it. Okay, great. Excellent. Thanks all. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all the patience. Thank you for subscribing and all that wonderful stuff. And we will see you next time on Knowledge Base. Much love and take care. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video and help this show get on the Rumble leaderboard. Another way you can support Badlands for free is by becoming a Badlander. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv, click Connect from the top menu, then become a Badlander. Once registered, you can download clips from your favorite Badlands shows to share on your social media accounts. You can also print out flyers and stickers that you can hand out at an event. Let's keep growing our community because we are the news now.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.